Walk into a Rolex store right now with $15,000 in cash in your hand and ask for a Submariner. The sales associate will smile, check their system, and tell you it's unavailable, explaining that there's a waiting list that could be 2 years, 5 years, or possibly never. That sounds strange because Rolex produces over 1 million watches every year, more than any other Swiss luxury brand. Yet access to their most popular models feels nearly impossible. What initially appears to be a simple supply issue begins to resemble something else entirely. And once you notice it, the way luxury scarcity works starts to look very different. Here's where the confusion deepens. Rolex produces between 800,000 and 1.2 million watches annually, a figure confirmed by industry reports. And that output is higher than most of its Swiss competitors by a wide margin. Despite this, models like the Submariner, the Daytona, and the GMT Master remain almost impossible to purchase at retail. Curious about the contradiction, I started digging through watch forums, collector communities, and gray market listings, and what surfaced was unsettling. Some buyers waited 3 years without ever receiving a call, while others were told that the waiting list for a Daytona stretched 150 years into the future. The responses were filled with dark humor, people joking that their most valuable inheritance would be a spot in line, or that you never really own a Rolex. You simply make sure your family stays registered. The irony is that those same watches are selling right now on the secondary market. A Submariner with a retail price of $10,650 regularly sells for nearly $15,000, while a Daytona that once retailed for $16,000 trades for roughly $32,000, double its original price. If there were truly a shortage, this level of availability at massive premiums would not exist, and that contradiction is the clue, because what looks like demand-driven scarcity is actually something far more deliberate. The first mechanism behind this strategy is controlled distribution. You cannot buy a Rolex online, not from the brand's website, not from authorized retailers, and not through e-commerce platforms, even in an era where people can purchase supercars and luxury real estate with a few clicks. Rolex requires buyers to physically visit an authorized dealer, and that requirement is intentional. The company tightly controls who is allowed to sell its watches, limits how many pieces each dealer receives, and manages allocation by model and by region. A dealer might want 100 Submariners to meet customer demand, but Rolex may send only 5 or 10, with no room for negotiation, no discounting, and no flexibility. This creates bottlenecks throughout the entire system. While other luxury brands expand distribution, launch online storefronts, and chase volume, Rolex moves in the opposite direction by making access more difficult. That friction is not a flaw, it is the product, because the harder the watch is to obtain, the more valuable it feels to the person trying to get it. Even if you get on a wait list, it doesn't guarantee anything. Dealers have full discretion over who actually receives a watch, and what I found on forums is revealing. One buyer had already purchased a Submariner and spent $10,000 on jewelry at the same dealer, yet when he tried to get a Daytona, the dealer showed little interest, and he remained waiting. Another registered for a GMT Master, waited 2 years, and during that time tried to build a relationship by buying a Datejust and a Cartier watch for his fiancée, followed up consistently, and even mentioned wanting the GMT for his wedding day. 2 years later, still no call. A Reddit user in Sydney reported asking about a Submariner and was told, "We only prioritize existing customers since you have no purchase history." He responded, "My money is as good as anyone else's." But it's not about money, it's about control. Dealers prioritize buyers with purchase histories and sometimes nudge customers toward additional purchases before allocating high-demand models. And this is not accidental. It works. Unpopular models sell, dealers stay profitable, and customers feel like they are being granted access to an exclusive club. You are not buying a watch, you are earning permission. Rolex could increase production, but they deliberately keep output limited, around 1 million watches per year, even as demand has surged. Why? Because more availability reduces desirability. If Rolex doubled production overnight, wait lists would vanish, prices would normalize, and a submariner would feel ordinary rather than coveted. Other brands show the consequences of overproduction. Tag Heuer ramped up supply in the 2000s, and their watches now lose significant value in the first year. Hublot released frequent editions that were not truly limited, making the Big Bang common, and entry-level models depreciate sharply. Corum oversaturated the market with variations of their bubble watch, and resale values collapsed. Rolex watched these patterns and made a calculated choice. Keep production limited, let waitlist grow, and let secondary market prices soar. When a Daytona doubles its price on the gray market, it is not a failure. It is proof of the brand's strength. Most luxury brands despise the gray market, but Rolex uses it strategically. When a Submariner retails for $10,650 but sells for nearly $15,000 on Chrono 24, it sends a message. The watch is worth more than the retail price. The GMT Master 2. Batman retails for $11,100 and trades for $18,500 on the secondary market, a 67% premium. The gray market acts as free advertising, showing potential buyers that Rolex watches are underpriced and highly desired. Rolex enforces rules to punish dealers caught selling to known flippers, but they do not eliminate the gray market entirely. By fighting just enough to maintain control, they allow the secondary market to validate the brand's value constantly. This is brand psychology at scale. Rolex understands something fundamental about human psychology. We want what we cannot have. Scarcity creates desire, and the harder something is to obtain, the more valuable it feels. If you could walk into any store and buy a Submariner right now, would it feel special? Would people treat it like an heirloom? Probably not. The waiting list is not a bug. It is the entire point. Every person told no becomes more convinced they need that watch. Every story about 5-year waitlists reinforces the brand's exclusivity, and every secondary market sale at a premium proves it is worth wanting. Even collectors with decades of loyalty, who have purchased watches across multiple continents and built relationships with dealers in several states, can be frozen out. Scarcity stops being a side effect and becomes the system. This is one of the most sophisticated brand-building strategies in luxury. Rolex does not aim to solve availability. They have a strategy, and it works better than any advertising campaign. While other brands spend millions on marketing, Rolex lets its waiting lists do the work. Every complaint about unavailability is free promotion, and every frustrated customer signals the brand's desirability. Whether you admire it or dislike it, this approach turns waiting itself into a measure of value. Once you recognize it here, you begin to see it everywhere. Rolex is not alone. Hermès uses an even more extreme version with their Birkin bags, making customers buy unrelated products just to access the one they want. I will break down that strategy next week, and it will make Rolex look tame. If you want to see how other luxury brands engineer desire and manipulate scarcity, subscribe. This is Infinite Luxe, where we reveal how luxury actually works.